Hi, I'm Elise. I was 10 the day my parents told me we were taking a weekend trip to visit Aunt Clara, someone I barely remembered, someone who lived 2 towns over. I packed like a kid does for a sleepover: hoodie, a book, my favorite hairbrush with the cracked handle, and Spot, the ragged plush dog I'd had since I was 4. They didn't tell me to bring homework. They didn't ask if I had friends to say goodbye to. Just, get in the car, we'll be back Sunday. And I believed them. The ride was quiet. Dad didn't have music on, and Mom kept scrolling on her phone like she was trying not to look at me. I sat in the back seat, counting the trees as they flew past the window. After about 2 hours, we pulled into a cul-de-sac I didn't recognize. Small town, peeling fences, a single porch light flickering in the early dusk. They didn't park. Dad turned off the engine, then turned to face me. "Get your things," he said. I remember the tone more than the words. Too calm, too practiced. "Why?" I asked. "Just for a bit. We'll be back soon." And that was all. I got out slowly, the straps of my backpack digging into my shoulders. The door to the house opened before I even knocked. A woman stood there, mid-50s, cropped gray hair, glasses too big for her face. "Elise?" she asked. I nodded. She glanced past me at the idling car. I turned too, just in time to see my dad wave once, then drive away. No goodbye, no explanation. I didn't cry. Not yet. Just stood there like my legs didn't belong to me anymore. The woman, Clara, opened the door wider and said, "Come in, sweetie. You can sit down." Her house smelled like microwaved leftovers and lavender cleaner. She pointed to the couch, then handed me a cup of water. I didn't touch it. She said, "You can call your parents if you need," but I didn't know what number to dial. My mom always used burner phones. My dad changed his contact name every few weeks. That night, Clara called someone. I later found out it was a social worker, but nobody came that evening. "Too late in the day," she said. I slept on a couch that smelled like cats, under a quilt with cigarette holes. I didn't close my eyes for long. In the morning, I checked outside for their car. Nothing. No tire tracks. No note. No explanation. At noon, Clara told me, "You're going to stay here for a while. Your parents said it's better for you this way." Better for me. I was 10. I didn't know what that meant. The social worker came 3 days later. She had kind eyes and bad shoes. She took notes, asked me things like, did they say where they were going? And do you have any allergies? I said no to both. She called it an informal guardianship. No legal papers, no transfer of custody, just a handshake agreement. They'd left me with a trusted family friend, but I wasn't Clara's family. I wasn't her friend. I was a favor, a transaction, and though she wasn't cruel, she wasn't kind either. I washed dishes, vacuumed her stairs, walked 2 miles to the school district she insisted I stay in, ate what she ate, instant soup, frozen meatloaf, stale crackers, and learned how to be small, quiet, unseen. At school, they called me Elise W. because I didn't have a last name that matched any guardian on file. I stopped raising my hand. I stopped bringing lunch. But I kept Spot, my ragged little plush dog. At night, I'd press him against my face and pretend he could whisper me to sleep. Years later, someone would ask me when I knew I'd been abandoned, and I'd say, "It wasn't when the car pulled away. It was when I realized I had no one to call." They didn't come back the next week, or the week after. Eventually, I stopped keeping track. Clara didn't hurt me, but she didn't hug me either. She didn't ask how I was or what I missed. We lived like 2 strangers occupying the same square footage. She gave me food, a bed, a roof, but never warmth. If I disappeared the next morning, I doubt she would have noticed. I still did well in school. I remember winning an award in 6th grade for math. My name was called. People clapped politely. I walked to the front of the gym. There was no one waiting in the crowd to take a photo. No one waving or smiling just for me. That was the first time I felt truly invisible. It wasn't shame I felt. It was something colder, Like I was present, but only in the way an empty chair is present, something to fill space. I began keeping my certificates, hiding them under my mattress like contraband. I didn't know what I was saving them for, just that they were proof, that I had done something, that I was real. And I wrote letters, not to a real address, just Mom and Dad scrawled on the front. I'd tell them about a test I aced, how I finally learned to boil eggs without cracking them, or that I beat the boys in a school race. Then I'd drop the envelope in the corner mailbox. No stamp, no hope, just ritual. I knew they wouldn't reach anyone, but writing made me feel less forgotten. When I turned 13, Clara moved to a smaller place. I lost my room, slept on a creaky couch that sagged in the middle. She said, "It's just temporary." I didn't ask for how long. Temporary in my world could mean days or years. At my new school, I didn't talk much. I listened instead. I learned that not every kid came from a white picket fence family. Some lived with aunts, some with no one. I wasn't unique in my loneliness, but I still felt alone. Once a teacher asked guardians to attend a student-teacher conference. Clara was busy, so I went by myself. My teacher blinked when I walked in. She recovered quickly. We sat, talked about my grades, my essays. At the end, she said softly, "You're doing really well, Elise. But you don't have to carry everything by yourself." I smiled. I didn't know what to say. I wasn't carrying everything. I was surviving. The first time I cried was when the mailbox disappeared, the one I used to send my empty letters. One day, it was just gone. No notice, no warning. Just a patch of concrete where hope used to live. I didn't cry because the letters were undelivered. I cried because now there was nowhere left to pretend they might read them. That night, I gathered every letter, every drawing, every note, shoved them into an old shoebox. On the lid, I wrote, "Just in case." I didn't know if I was saving hope or just saving proof that I'd ever existed. By the time I turned 15, I had stopped waiting for texts, for calls, for anyone to ask where I'd gone. Instead, I found something else. Google. And a Wi-Fi password Clara never changed. I started teaching myself to code, watched tutorials in the dark, downloaded PDFs of textbooks, joined online forums under fake usernames. I didn't know what I was building, but I knew no one could take it from me, because I wasn't a misplaced item to be dropped from one house to another. I wasn't a leftover, a favor, a mistake. I was the builder, and one day I'd build something no one could erase. When I was 16, I got my first freelance gig. A woman from a parenting blog needed help fixing a broken section of her website. I stayed up all night watching tutorials on JavaScript and CSS. I didn't know what I was doing at first, but I figured it out. And she paid me $50 through PayPal. I stared at the payment notification like it was proof that I existed. That night, I didn't tell Clara. She wouldn't have cared. But I went to sleep feeling like, for the first time, I had touched something solid, something that couldn't vanish in the rearview mirror. I kept going, after school, after chores, after everything. I'd open my secondhand laptop and build. I created a small portfolio website, then a second, then one for a local bakery. Word got around. People liked that I was fast, quiet, and cheap. I wasn't building a business. I was building distance between me and the girl left on a stranger's doorstep. By 17, I had saved $1,500, enough for a used camera, new shoes, and a bus ticket out. But I didn't leave. Not yet. There was one more thing I needed to do, give what I never had. A chance for kids like me to be seen. I started something called Second Window. It was a basic site at first, just a few resources, links to scholarships, articles about legal rights for minors. But it grew. I added anonymous chat for teens stuck in non-traditional guardianships like mine. I coded every feature myself. It was messy, clunky, but real. Within 6 months, I had over 300 users. Mostly teens, mostly quiet, scared, brilliant in their own quiet ways. One day, a girl from Ohio messaged me, "I used your site to find out I could legally apply for food stamps without my foster family knowing. Thank you." Another said, "I didn't think anyone else lived on a stranger's couch. Now I know I'm not the only one. I didn't have to be their savior. I just had to leave a light on." Clara noticed the change. She asked where I was getting money from. I said web design. She asked for rent. I gave it. She didn't ask anything else. I graduated high school without a single family member in the audience. But I wore a hidden pin under my gown, a small silver window engraved with the number 2, a nod to second window, and to the second life I was building for myself. That summer, I got an email from a tech incubator in Chicago. They had found my project through a thread on Reddit. They wanted to fund me. At first, I thought it was spam. Then I saw the signature, Lena G., founder of a nonprofit I used to admire in silence. She wrote, "We believe in what you're building. Let's talk." I said yes. I packed my things in one afternoon. Spot, my stuffed dog, went into the top of my suitcase. I left Clara a note. Not a thank you, not a goodbye, just, "I'll be okay. You don't have to worry." And I meant it. When the bus pulled away from that town, I didn't look back. I didn't need to. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't running from something. I was running towards something. I was 19 when I got the email. Subject line, "From your parents. Please read." It had no attachments, no emojis, just a plain, cold subject that made my chest tighten. I stared at it for a long time, not because I was afraid, but because part of me had already written them off as ghosts. And now, there they were, typing. The message was polite. Too polite. They said they'd heard about Second Window through an article a friend forwarded. They hoped I was doing well and were proud of how far I'd come. Then came the real reason. My half-brother, a boy I had never met, was about to start college. They were struggling financially, and they were hoping I could contribute. Just something small to support the family. They even added a link to a GoFundMe. I didn't reply. Not immediately, not after an hour, not after a week. Instead, I walked around my tiny apartment in Chicago, reading their words over and over. They hadn't mentioned why they left. They hadn't apologized. They hadn't asked if I was okay. They just wanted something. I wasn't angry, not like I thought I'd be. I was tired, like someone had reopened a room I'd already cleaned, locked, and left behind. And that's when I realized I didn't need them to explain anymore. I didn't need to understand. I just needed to protect the version of me I had fought so hard to build. 3 days later, I wrote a response. "Hi, I'm glad to hear you're alive. I don't have a brother. I have a memory of being left in front of a stranger's house at 10 years old. I have 10 years of silence, of holidays without names, of letters I sent to no one. I have a project that helps kids like me survive what I went through, and I intend to protect it with everything I've got. So no, I won't contribute, because family isn't built by blood. It's built by presence, and you were never there." I hit send and closed the tab, not with satisfaction, not with bitterness, just peace. A week later, a friend forwarded me a video. It was a clip from a local news station. A fundraiser had gone viral. 2 parents claimed they were reconnecting with their long-lost daughter and asked the public to help send their son to school. They used my name. They used my photo, one I had posted during a press feature for Second Window. I felt the blood drain from my face. They weren't just back. They were using me, again. I called Lena, my mentor. She answered on the second ring. "Hey," I said, voice tight, "I think I need a lawyer." 2 days later, a cease and desist letter was sent. The fundraiser was taken down. The video disappeared from the station's page. But something inside me stayed shaken, not because of what they tried, but because of how easily they did it. No guilt, no pause, just entitlement, wrapped in fake warmth and family language. That night, I posted a statement on the Second Windows site. Short, director, honest. To the kids who've been left behind, you don't owe anyone the pieces of yourself you had to stitch back together. Your voice matters, your healing matters, and family, real family, is the people who choose you, stay for you, and never ask for payment in return. Thousands shared it. Dozens messaged me, and one girl wrote, "Thank you for saying what I couldn't." That's when I knew. They didn't come back for me. They came back for what they thought they could take. But I had already built something no one could steal, not even them. And after the fundraiser was taken down, everything went quiet again. No more emails, no more news, no more unexpected names in my inbox. It should have felt like a victory, but it didn't. Not really. What I felt instead was exhaustion. Like I'd spent years climbing out of a hole, only to realize I was still carrying the dirt with me. I wasn't angry anymore, not at them, not even at Clara. What I felt deep down was something worse. Shame. Not for what they did to me, but for the fact that I had once wanted them back. That some part of me, for years, still checked my email on birthdays, still dreamed they'd show up at graduation, still believed, foolishly, that the people who left might one day come back for the right reasons. It hit me during a therapy session I almost didn't attend. The counselor asked, "Have you forgiven them?" I shrugged. "I don't think I need to." She paused, then asked, "Have you forgiven yourself for needing them?" And I broke, completely, because I hadn't. I had carried this idea in my chest like a secret, that maybe if I had been smarter, quieter, more lovable, they wouldn't have left. That maybe the abandonment wasn't about them. It was about me. Something in me, some invisible flaw I couldn't name, but never stopped trying to fix. Even after everything I had built, Second Window, speaking events, youth workshops, that fear still lived under my skin like a scar I kept hidden. What if I'm still not enough? So I did something I hadn't done in years. I went back. Not to the house Clara lived in. It had long been sold. But to the neighborhood. The corner mailbox was still gone. The sidewalk was cracked. The air smelled like wet concrete and old leaves. I stood outside that house where I'd first been left. The porch light was different. New people lived there now. I wasn't looking for closure. I just needed to prove to myself that I could stand there and not fall apart. And I didn't. I was okay. Not fine, not fixed, just okay. Which, for someone like me, was everything. That night, I opened the old shoebox I'd kept sealed for nearly a decade. Inside, crumpled certificates, a few postcards I wrote but never sent, a drawing I made of my dream house, a place with curtains and a fireplace and someone waiting at the door, and at the bottom, tucked into the corner, was Spot, my ragged old plush dog. I held him to my chest, closed my eyes and whispered, "You made it." That's when I knew. Forgiveness doesn't always look like a reunion. Sometimes it looks like setting down the weight you were never meant to carry. Sometimes it's not about the people who left, it's about the version of you who still waits for them. So I forgave her. The little girl who used to sit by the window with her backpack on, the one who counted headlights in the dark and hoped one would turn into the driveway. I forgave her for believing, for waiting, for loving people who didn't know how to love her back. She didn't fail, she survived. And now, she gets to rest. I used to think family was something you were born into, a fact written in blood, in paperwork, in last names, something permanent, no matter how cold, how absent, how damaging. But I was wrong. Family isn't where you start. It's who stays. Lena was one of the first people who made me feel safe. She never called herself a mentor, never treated me like a charity case. She read my code, challenged my ideas, and told me the truth, even when it was uncomfortable. "You're smart," she once said, "but you're scared of being seen." I nodded because she was right. Then she added, "I see you anyway." That sentence stayed with me longer than any apology I never received. Then there was Naomi, my roommate in Chicago. We met at a tech networking event where I was clearly the youngest person in the room. She had bright red curls, loud earrings, and a laugh that shook the walls. We weren't supposed to click, but somehow we did. She called me E before anyone else did, shared her Spotify playlists, left me sticky notes that said things like, "Eat something today," or "That code bug wasn't your fault." When I told her the truth about the abandonment, the years with Clara, the emails, she didn't flinch. She just said, "Well, screw them. You've got us now." And she meant it. When I got sick with the flu and didn't want to ask for help, Naomi showed up with soup, cough drops, and a heating pad. She didn't knock. She just came in like family does. Over time, I stopped expecting love to look like DNA. I started noticing the small things instead. The cafe owner who remembered my order, the professor who emailed back with edits and not just grades, the teen from Second Window who signed off every chat with, "Thanks for being out there." It all added up, like a mosaic made from broken tiles, not perfect, but whole. One day, Naomi and I threw a dinner party in our apartment. Just 5 people, mismatched chairs, paper plates, bad wine. Someone brought a cake. Someone played music. Someone said, "It feels like home in here." And it did. Not because of the decorations, not because of tradition, but because everyone in that room had chosen each other. That's what makes family real. Not the shared history, but the shared intention. The people who show up, not because they have to, but because they want to. The ones who stay even when it's messy, especially when it's messy. So no, I wasn't born into the family I needed, but I grew into it, found it, built it, one kindness at a time. And in doing so, I learned something I wish that 10-year-old girl had known all along. You don't have to keep chasing the ones who left, because sometimes, if you just stand still long enough, love finds you anyway. I used to think I was the reason they left, that maybe I cried too much, or asked for too many hugs, that I wasn't easy to love or worth the effort. It's terrifying how early children start blaming themselves for other people's silence. But now I see it clearly. I wasn't too much. I was never the problem. I was the proof that love, once broken, can rebuild itself, stronger. I look at my life today and sometimes it feels like it belongs to someone else. The apartment filled with warmth. The inbox full of thank you messages from teens I'll never meet. The interviews, the stage lights, the applause. None of that was guaranteed. None of it was handed to me. It was built slowly, quietly, piece by piece, by a girl who refused to stay invisible. People ask me now, if you could go back, would you change anything? And honestly, no. Because if I hadn't been left, I wouldn't have learned how to hold space for others. If I hadn't been forgotten, I wouldn't have known how to see people who feel invisible. And if I hadn't had to survive in silence, I might never have found the power of my own voice. They took my childhood. They stole years I'll never get back. But they didn't win, because I still became someone kind, someone honest, someone whole. And that, to me, is the greatest revenge. Not anger, not payback, but peace. Last week I got a letter, not from them, but from a girl named Mariah in Kansas, 15 years old, living with a cousin who barely speaks to her. She found Second Window through a late-night scroll. She wrote, "I thought no one would ever understand what it's like to be left behind. But then I read your story, and now I think, maybe I'll be okay too." I cried when I read that, not out of sadness, but because I realized I had become what I needed most back then. Proof that pain doesn't have to be permanent, that your beginning doesn't define your ending, that surviving isn't the end of the story. Healing is. And so, to the girl I used to be, the one who sat on that porch clutching a backpack and a stuffed dog, this is what I want you to know. You were always enough, even when no one told you, even when they left, even when the mailbox disappeared and the letters never came. You were never the curse. You were the beginning, the seed, the spark, and one day you'd grow into someone who didn't need their love to be whole, because you found your own. Sometimes the people who were supposed to protect you are the ones who hurt you the most. But as Elise's story shows us, pain doesn't get the final word. You do. She wasn't rescued by the past. She rose because she refused to be defined by it. From abandoned to unstoppable, Elise built a life on her own terms, through grit, through grace, and through the quiet strength of choosing love anyway. So if you've ever felt invisible, unwanted, or not enough, let this be your reminder. You are not broken. You are becoming. And sometimes, the family you build is even stronger than the one you lost. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, you're not alone. Leave us a comment. Your story might help someone else heal too. And if you believe in second chances and chosen families, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. Here at Channel Name, we tell real stories that remind us what it means to keep going. Until next time, stay strong, stay kind, and stay true to you.